Everybody, welcome to another Perceptive podcast here on the Game Wisdom channel. We're running this late tonight. It's after 10 here, but this one is certainly worth it. My guest tonight is the game developer who is most famously known for the hit game Plants vs. Zombies. He also released last year the game Octogeddon. And we're not only going to be talking about that, but we're celebrating 10 years of Plants fighting Zombies. He is currently at the studio All Yes Good, and this has been a talk I've been very excited about for some time. So please welcome to the podcast game designer George Fan.
Brains.
There we go. But
Hi, everyone.
I don't have a pea
Just kidding,
shooter
I'm not
here.
a zombie. Just kidding.
Oh no. You just scared everybody there, George.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I look forward to this.
Yeah, and I've been excited about this one for some time as well. I was just telling George, I was at his talk back in 2012 when he discussed casual game design and making Plants vs. Zombies appealing for even his Muller to play. And it was just a fascinating talk.
Yeah, that was such a cool thing for me to be able to do. I think as far as like design goes, that is the kind of, I talk to a lot of designers. Every designer has their thing that they're kind of more passionate about within game design, and mine is definitely. I spend a lot of time thinking about, how do I, how do I distill this game down, make it kind of like appeal to just all kinds of people, to make it like the easiest to play. Like, is this game more complicated than it needs to be? How do I teach these the mechanics within my game? So yeah, that is just the kind of stuff that I spend a lot of time thinking about, and so it was just able to pass on some of that knowledge, some of the stuff I've just been spending all my brain cycles on. And yeah, so if you haven't watched it, listeners out there, go check it out. I highly recommend it.
Definitely. And as I was telling George, a lot of that discussion regarding not only casual gameplay, but also just UI design and kind of teaching the player in terms of like almost like I forget the term that I use, almost like a organic tutorial I've referenced very frequently in many of the videos here on the channel. And
yeah, I think of it as like it's like kind of like teaching in disguise, right? Like you are not the player doesn't realize they're getting taught. Ideally, they're just having fun playing the game. I keep saying like Plants vs. Zombies adventure mode is kind of like one giant tutorial to teach you how to play the game, and I think that's right. If you look at it that way, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. And there is definitely so much for us to talk about tonight. And as I was just telling George beforehand, I talked about Plants vs. Zombies in my first book. For those of you who are new, my book is out now, 20 Essential Games to Study. And one of the major reasons for that, again, was just the design of Plants vs. Zombies and how it really did like appeal to everyone. Like I use the subtitle like the most hardcore casual game ever made with that discussion.
That's a pretty apt description. I was just, one of the things I am most proud of about that game is that, so I released it, and I just, not too long before that, I had been working at Blizzard, and I sent the game to a bunch of my coworkers and friends at Blizzard. They all got back to me with like, I played through the whole thing. I had a blast, or hardcore gamer types. And meanwhile, I also, as that talk told you, my mom beat the whole game. My dad, who's not much of a gamer, beat the whole thing as well. And I just kept hearing story after story of like, I'm someone who doesn't really play games, but I picked up Plants vs. Zombies. For a lot of them, it was their first experience to kind of like a more strategic kind of gameplay. So I'm just so proud of that. Like that just makes me so happy to be able to do something like that. And Yeah, that is. I do think that was a result of the emphasis on distilling the game down, making sure like there's nothing in the game that like you build the game up to be something that will be easy to teach, and then you have something where all kinds of audiences can enjoy it.
Yeah. And the fact that the gameplay loop itself, as you said, like for a lot of people, it was like their first time experiencing that. Like for people like myself, and I'm sure for a lot of my regulars watching this right now, we've grit our teeth or we sharpen our nails on tower defense gameplay for so many years, but it was still engaging for us, like for people who've experienced the genre before. Like one of my favorite parts of that talk was when you discussed the whole challenge of sunflowers and knowing how
Mm-hmm.
many of those to put down, how to educate the player. And again, it's like it's one of those fascinating things about game design. Like for like general consumer, it looks like you just did your first iteration and it worked. We're done. But no, it took a lot of refining to drill that down to get to the point where somebody who's never played a tower defense game would understand that mechanic.
That was probably like game design wise the biggest decision. Well, it had the most ramifications in making that decision. So like just a quick background. If you want the full deets, you can go and watch the talk. But to summarize, it was that I initially costed the pea shooter, which is the first plant you get that fires peas at the enemies, and I costed that 100 sun, and I costed the sunflower 100 sun as well. And I was working at PopCap, and PopCap's audiences are all kinds of game players. There are people who never played anything other than casual games, and so we were just thinking about, okay, well, how would they react to, how would they play this out if the sunflower is 100 and the pea shooter is 100? And what we were saying is like, you have zombies coming at you and you only have 100 sun. What, like, you're you're not gonna, like, you've never played a game where you're building out your economy. Like, I played a bunch of StarCraft in the day, and like I knew, like, you can't do anything if you don't build up your SCVs, for instance, right? But we couldn't count on people like this whole new audience who's never played like an RTS to get that sunflowers are probably the most important plant to plant. So we were just having like we were having trouble, like, what do these players do? They're seeing something coming at you. You're getting antagonized by zombies. Of course, you just plant pea shooters against them, and thus your economy doesn't build up. Like, so we were having that problem. We talked about tons of different like solutions to it, and I was kind of just inspired by it's my Fisher Price solution. That's what I call it. It's like I watch like a baby play with like a baby toy, and they just like basically tap on whatever's lit up, and so I thought, okay, so we have this UI where things that you can't afford are dimmed, and things that you can afford are lit up. So if you just played by clicking on things that are lit, like you like I wanted to encourage that to being like a viable way to play. And so I made the sunflower. By the way, this is not the short version of this. I'm finding. I made, maybe there's no way to condense this, but I made the sunflower 50 sun so that you would start the level out, and whenever there would be, when you're under 100 and when you're at like 50 sun itself, like the sunflower is lit up, but the pea shooter is not. So you would tend to just, like, if you didn't know anything about how strategy games work, how real-time strategy games, just like click on the things that were lit up for you and just place them on the battlefield. And but like I said before, there was the decision with the most, like, I knew in making that I'd be like, George, you're at maybe 100 hours of work. I don't know. It was a lot of hours of work because some change like that where you are changing your main economy producing unit and you're having the price of it, that is like that just has like a ripple effect that goes
Yeah.
through the whole entire game, right? I had to play the whole game through like 3 or 4 more times, adjusting the prices of everything, kind of like fundamentally changing how suns drop from the sky and the rate of like I know that the rate wasn't like I didn't just have the rate of sun being put out from when I changed the price from 100 to 50. And so I just had to play all through the whole thing again to make sure the game still felt good, just because I wanted players who had never played a strategy game before to have to stand a chance. And we didn't do just that. We did things like if you didn't plant 3 sunflowers, I do this kind of um, I guess it's a reactive kind of messaging system in a lot of my games where it's like if you're playing correctly, we don't spam you with messages that you like. If you already know what to do, a lot of times we don't spam you with kind of telling you to do this because we're pretty sure you already know. However, we do have like cases built into the game. So if you are not doing the thing we want you to do, we kind of like prod you and like just remind you to tell you to do things in the right direction. So if you on the first few levels, also if you don't plant 3 sunflowers, it kind of like gently reminds you, hey, you know, I forget what it says, but it's something to the extent of, hey, you need to plant your sunflowers if you wanna survive the zombies, something like that.
Hmm.
So we attacked from many angles, but the biggest one was just changing the price of the sunflower so that's lit up more often.
Hmm.
I guess I should mention just you used to start every level with 200 sun, so I thought it'd be cool to have a few things you could plant right away, and I changed that. I also changed that to you starting every level with 50 sun, so that you just flat out can't plant a pea shooter right away. You can only plant your sun, and so I think that also kind of encourage people to just to plant only sunflowers at the beginning.
Yeah. And that
Yeah,
was not George. I don't want to be a bearer of bad news, but that was not the short answer to
that was
that.
not. That was, yeah, I probably shouldn't preface things with okay. The short answer is this from now on because yes, that took yeah that took a while to explain. Right, I part of that talk is I emphasize try to use as few words as possible when you're trying to get your tutorial messages across. And I did not do that very well just now. I think it is very different when you're kind of conversing and you're displaying stuff on a screen. But
Yeah.
yes, that is, yeah. I did not follow my own advice, if that is my own advice. Yes.
That is alright. I won't ding you too much for that, George. But yeah, again, like for the regulars watching, you know I love these discussions. So I mean, like this is like a cake for me. Like, I'm just sitting here enjoying like, listening to you talk about it, and yeah, like that's one of the most fascinating aspects of game design right there. Again, is that most people will never see or understand the work that goes into making these very simple things, and with the sunflower example, like having to basically, as you said, replay your game multiple times. Because again, like when you change a core mechanic of your game, it's not as simple as just saying, I'm going to make this character do 5 points of damage, or I'm going to make this guy jump a little bit more. It changes everything. Like,
Hmm.
in the book that I'm writing right now about platformer design that's due out later this year, I said like if you change your jumping system, that changes everything. Like you can't just make little changes like that and expect everything to still be working.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Have not having made a platformer yet, like a true one, but I can totally imagine that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff based on what I've seen about platforms. There's a lot of stuff you can change about jumping. It's not just like the force, which would with
Yep.
like it's like there's hang time. There's just how much you can move left and right during the jump. Right. There's like so
Yep.
much stuff
Oh
to
yes.
make it.
Yeah, the last 2 months I was playing like nothing but platformers. Like on stream, I just went through like the whole NES back catalog. playing
Oh, what were some of the ones you played? I
oh
might have played some
my.
of them.
We played Batman, the 19, I think it was 1988 one by
Oh, the
Sunsoft.
Sunsoft?
Yeah.
Yes. I especially love the music
Oh
from
yes.
that game. Oh, the tunes are so great. I don't
Uh,
remember if the gameplay
it
was super
holds.
excellent. Was it
It holds up for the most part. The wall jumping is just very fascinating in that game. Like it's just like a it's commonplace now, but it was so weird playing that back in the old days. Mike in chat oh good, they're my regulars kind of came along for the ride of some like the weirder or the horror ones. So I played
Oh, no
Michael
way.
Jordan Chaos in the Windy City, which is
I haven't even heard of that one.
lucky
What?
you. It, it's basically Michael Jordan having to save the Chicago Bulls from zombies and a mad scientist who
Wow.
I guess I don't know if he
So,
wanted to take over basketball or if he just really wanted his own team.
huh. So it was just completely skippable experience. What is there a reason you played like all kind like you played a few like good examples
Mm-hmm.
and you also just like is there also a lot to learn from the horrendous ones as well?
Yeah, like especially in terms of like a level design and even just how the jumping feels in your hands. Like one that you guys haven't mentioned yet, chat, was the Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle for the Super Nintendo. It is a punishing game. That is just
Yikes.
the at one point the game actually jokes at you and says, it would be a shame if you lost your last continue to restart this entire game over again. I almost swear on stream when that message came up. But like
Yeah.
the platforming was rock solid in that. Like it felt responsive, but
Yep.
the levels were just frustrating to play. Let's see. Oscar is bringing up Tom and Jerry. There was like two or three Tom and Jerry games. Oh, Hook. The game based, of course, on the movie. That was actually really good. Like, I was not expecting to enjoy Hook as much as I did, but that one was a
Oh,
really good one.
do you remember what company
I think it was
did Hook?
Sony. I think this was during that era when Sony was still making games for the SNES.
Oh,
Let me see.
no
Was it
way.
Sony?
So, in my experience, first of all, they back then they had a category that they would rate games on that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't graphics, gameplay, music, and sound. And you remember they used to have a category called play control. Like they would give you 4 out of 5 stars on play control, and because that was just like I feel like so many more games get that right now, but back then it wasn't a guarantee. Like
Oh, yeah.
you could be like maybe you're really in the market for a game with good play control, so you'd read these like game magazines to figure out which one of those are. I found that you couldn't really go wrong if you were either playing a Nintendo first party Nintendo game or Capcom or
Oh, yeah.
Konami. I feel like those three had play control down pretty pat.
Yeah.
I think if you outside of those three, it was just a crapshoot. Like you
Yeah.
could right. Um,
Oh, yeah. Like I.
Speaking of double jumping, like
Mhm.
the first Ninja Gaiden, I think you could
Oh.
like scale up walls, but it was just I just remember it being like, well, I mean, that was part of the difficulty of the
Mhm.
game was it was really to kind of to do that. I
Mhm.
remember the wall climbing being very like, yeah, not as responsive as you would like, and not as like, I mean, it would kind of be inexcusable nowadays in a
Yeah.
any platform right now.
Oh yeah, we played. I went through all three Ninja Gaiden on stream, and that was like it's one of those really weird cases where the gameplay is responsive, like there's no issues there, but the
Mhm.
level design was just a
Punishing.
nightmare. Like when you
Yeah.
die, you have to restart like an entire like 4 levels over again. Oh
Yep.
my god! Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
mm,
It. I remember when you died. At least in the first one, this whole screen would cycle in like all rainbow colors to kind of take the edge off. Like you're all like, "Whoa!" It's so frustrating to have to start over, but at least I get to see rainbow colors.
No, we
Yeah.
weren't having any of that. Castlevania, we played. I
Oh, the
even
first one
we played
or the
one.
whole series?
I played through like I beat the first one. I beat
You
four.
beat it?
Yeah,
Whoa, skills. I I couldn't beat the first one until like much later, and I went back to it and just like practiced over and over. But yeah,
yeah. I still
those the
haven't beat
game and the
number.
third one were really challenging. You haven't beat number three yet.
No, and number two. That was the one that was just like horrible in terms of like playability or just like understanding what was going on in that game.
I think that one of the three, most if you ask most people, of yeah, that's kind of the black sheep of the early Castlevanias. I don't know why. I always liked that one the most, just because the it had the atmosphere where you switch from night and day, and then when that message comes on screen, it's just like chilling to the bone.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it's like, what a horrible night to have a curse, and it was just kind of like it it kind of started the my favorite kind of Castlevania game. Like it had just the beginnings of kind of like a more Metroidvania kind of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it had flaws, but I for me that one Castlevania 2 is actually, controversial opinion, my favorite of the first three. Whoa.
Mm-mm. Dun, dun, dun.
You aren't having you didn't like it much at all.
I could appreciate. I did like it in terms of like the exploration. I will say that music, like the curse music, is still stuck in my head. Like I can still hear that. It just like got in there. It's not getting out. I did beat that one like way back in the day, but I do know I used a Nintendo guide for that one. That was pretty much that was not me winning by skill alone. That was
Yeah, there's a lot of really kind of hard to figure out stuff. Like maybe it's because of the time I played it too. It's just like I had more time and I could just, you know, repeat a section over and over, or just
yeah.
like keep exploring on these like cryptic clues that actually weren't even clues to kind of like, yeah, figure out where you're supposed to go next.
Hmm.
Yeah, I recognize there's flaws with that game, but yeah,
Yeah.
the nighttime music and the daytime music are just like so awesome. A quick aside: when I first started playing Minecraft, I don't think it had music at that point, and I would just queue up the daytime music and nighttime music on my MP3 player and play those like from Castlevania 2. So when it was daytime, I would play the daytime music, and when it was nighttime in Minecraft, I would switch to the nighttime music. That made the experience even more awesome. It
Hmm.
was great.
Yeah. Um,
Anyways,
yeah. So many. Again, there's just such a very wide berth in terms of platformer design. Trying to think of like the very weird ones. Oh, we played. Oh, and the chat wants to know if you did get the link to the chat because I think a few people
I
are.
did. I
Okay.
am seeing what is being chatted. So,
Though I think the absolute like weirdest one I played was Blues Brothers for the Super Nintendo. That game made no
whoa.
damn sense whatsoever. I'm pretty sure they must have reskinned another game and used the Blues Brothers license for that.
Okay, yeah, I might have to check that one out then. Just all
Like,
kinds of wacky.
yeah, for instance, you
Right.
eat cake and then you grow muscles. Because that was
Oh
in the Blues
yeah, that's
Brothers movie.
typical Blues Brothers, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did miss some, like, the. Oh my goodness, there's so many classic games. Like, I was talking to, like, the people about this, like it's the strangest thing about the game industry. Like there are so many games out now. Like I don't think I'll ever have the time to actually sit down and give them all like the attention they deserve. Like even like right now, I'm like running through my head all the games that I miss that I could have played on the NES and the SNES for the book.
Yeah, what are there? Did you play any of the Contra series?
Oh yes, and
Okay.
as my
All right.
badge
Well
of
done.
honor, I did beat that without needing the 30 live code.
Oh,
I
impressive.
did it. And I think I also beat Cuphead like a few weeks after that too.
Oh yeah, right. That's a Contra
Sort of,
as
yeah.
well. Wait, you said you beat Contra afterward?
No, I beat
So you kind of
Contra. I did beat Cuphead when it came out. I actually played that like one night on stream, like the day it came out. I just sat there and beat the whole thing right there because I was waiting for that game for so long.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Oh,
have a soft spot for like Contra, run and gun.
Gunstar Heroes, that kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah. Yeah. Right. You get it. You get it.
Oh
Yeah.
yes. And the people, nobody's brought this up yet in chat, but while it's not a platformer, I did play Jaws and Friday the 13th, the two LJN games from back in the day.
Okay.
That was an
Yeah.
experience. Let's just put it like that.
Right. If I remember right, I think LJN was like a toy company. So
Yeah, they got a
they
lot
they
of
wouldn't be the
license.
best at making games necessarily, or they're just right. Right. Yeah, even more so back then if a game was a licensed game, you just like really off of it.
Yeah.
Like it was probably well, no, the exception was the
G.I.
the
Joe.
Capcom games that were like the Disney series they
Oh,
had.
yes.
Those were pretty good.
Oh, yeah, I got that Disney Afternoon collection. That was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
DuckTales, Rescue Rangers.
Yeah, those were all solid games.
But yeah, like getting trying to Oscar remind me like again we could sit here and just reminisce and I'm very
Yeah,
inclined to
that's
do
cool with me.
that. I
Hmm.
could we
Yep.
could ease
Right.
I could just be this gas easily.
Right. Right.
Episode 1 of
But
15.
right. But you know, right, we can I am no expert in that stuff. I'm just a fan of it, so we can go ahead and move on to
Yeah.
stuff that's
And yet, like I
perhaps
said,
more
George, I am more than happy to have you back on. If you won't come back tomorrow, I'm not complaining. I'll talk to you. We can have this chat as long as you want.
yeah, right. Right. We have many more NES games to go through.
Oh yes, but trying to I guess steer the boat back on course here. There was one thing that I wanted
Yeah.
to bring up, that, as you were saying earlier, in terms of how a lot of the older magazines had like play controls or playability. I remember
Hmm.
GamePro used to have Fun Factor, and
Fun factor. Yeah.
that was one of those very weird things. Like I've heard like from a lot of game journalists use the word fun like they say it's a four-letter word. Like it's very hard to
No.
describe a game as being fun.
Yeah. That's kind of a thing in the games industry as well. Like there are certain designers that are shy away from using the word fun because they feel like it doesn't really mean much. Like it can just be used to like it doesn't have a like they would rather you describe why you like the game without using the word fun, for instance. And yeah, I just don't have that kind of vocabulary. So sometimes I will say a game is fun if I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fun factor was back in the day was because I mean they broke it down into graphics, sound, and play control and fun factor, and that was I mean really that was the most important category. That is probably like if you just look at modern reviews where they just give you one number score, that is the fun factor is a majority of that score. And so yeah, back in the day they broke it down for you like a lot of times even back then fun factor is what you looked at for if you to know if you wanted to get a game or not.
And like we were just having this conversation on the stream before this one, and we were talking about how much of an importance like gameplay can mean to certain people. And it's one of those very tricky concepts because we've seen games that have very deep gameplay but may not be best in terms of presentation, while other games are really good in terms of
Hmm.
presentation, but there may be issues with the gameplay. And even if you're comparing games of the same genre.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I had to choose one, it'd be like we've seen right. If okay, so if I, in terms of like what I want to shine in a game I make, it's definitely the gameplay over the presentation. However, I think to a certain right, I think let's see, maybe one matters more the fewer games you play in general. Like I think presentation is very important if this isn't the thousandth game you've played. But I think that starts to like as you play more games and you're unique, really, really good experiences, I think you start to favor the gameplay over the presentation more because like if you hear about a game that's just like, oh, you have to play this because the gameplay is just amazing, then I feel like that's what you gravitate to more as you mature as a gamer. I think that'd be the distinction I could imagine between the two.
Yeah.
But you just I think you as a game dev, you do want to put enough. You do want to put enough of your effort into both, right? I think are we including like polish in the presentation part of things?
I would say
I think
yes. Yeah.
then I think yeah, that's what a lot of times like really separates your game from the pack is the polish that you can put on a game. Um, Plants vs Zombies wouldn't have been what it was if develop it like we did. So the game took 3.5 years to make. We could have shipped it 2.5 years into things. Like if the the main game modes were all existing, and if we want to say, all right, put the game out now, like I would have been plenty happy to do that. However, for just a variety of reasons, we decided to kind of keep polishing the game for that last year, and we added a bunch of new game modes at the end, balanced the game to a sheen, and I think that's I think separates games. Helped Plants vs Zombies stand out from all other games that were coming out. It's the having worked at Blizzard and PopCap, they both companies kind of had the same philosophy, which is just like generally it's just make the game as awesome you can as you. We ship the game when it's done, and with a real emphasis on polish. So I've just been fortunate enough to work at two companies that kind of shared that mentality about game making, which I mean both companies have had lots of success. I think these it is definitely like I realize not every company has that luxury, but given if you have the means to do this, like that is a good way to go. Like
And it's definitely been, I think, a major part, kind of, I think, the growth of the independent scene over the last, we could probably say like 5, maybe arguably like 10 years at this point, in terms of when the indie scene really started to blow up, especially with the rise of Steam and the like. And
yes,
it's one of those things that, like as you said, George, like it really, I think, separates the good from the amazing games. Like I'm sure, like yourself and like the chat here, we've played plenty of games from the independent space over the last decade, and there are games out there that have really great game mechanics, but are just horrible in terms of their presentation. Like we've used this term before, like you kind of have to quote unquote find the fun to really enjoy these games instead of just being able to enjoy them right from the get go. And the ones that have really, I think, risen up over those years have been those that you start playing and you can enjoy it from the very first minute. Some of my favorites, Spelunky, The Binding of Isaac, Stardew Valley, and again, I think we all have our list of favorite indie games over this last decade.
oh yeah. So in terms of what I think you need to have nowadays is like even like to kind of stand out in the indie space, you need to have even your game needs to even like be like the total cream of the crop now because there is just so much in this space right now. And in terms of like, if your game doesn't have presentation, it really relies on like you almost have to have someone you trust, someone's opinion you trust, like tell you that, all right, you're gonna hate or you're not gonna be into this game at first, but there's something here, and you just have to get past that first bit, and then they'll be just right. They'll be awesomeness to behold once you get past like there. Yeah, you have to trust someone that there are real nuggets of goodness within. But right, if you have the presentation, then you don't need that person to kind of sell the game for you. I think right. A recent played Dota Auto Chess. Oh, you have?
No, I haven't. I heard people playing it.
Yeah, I think so. Huge fan of that game. I think the game is amazing. However, I know it's because of the limitations of it. It is a game in another game's system. It is a mod of Dota 2. So I believe there are just certain things they can't do. Like the UI generally is not what I would like in a game. So I have to tell friends like trust me, like get into this game. It's amazing. I'll even like help. I'll walk you through the beginning to kind of like get you past this like hump, and then right you like there's something good in here, and you just have to like get past this first little bit to get to it. I feel like that is what if you have good gameplay but not as good a presentation, I feel like that's the kind of stuff you have to rely on. Whereas if you've just worked on all aspects of your game and your presentation is solid as well, you don't need that as.
And we've talked about this before again about like those games where the quote unquote the real game begins kind of thing. And I always hate those kinds of games because I don't want to spend like you said. There's way too many games and not enough time out there. I don't want to have to spend 10 hours before the game actually gets good, or we can start appreciating it.
We don't have time to play games to wait for them to begin. Right. Let's just have them begin.
And I gotta ask you this question, considering again you being the creator of Plants vs. Zombies, one of the best casual games, have you had a chance to play any of the Souls-likes? And do you have any thoughts on that kind of design?
I have not. I am extremely curious about them. I've heard. I don't know if I would like them or not. I'm extremely curious about them, though.
People,
Yeah.
people in the chat, we joke all the time when somebody new comes in and asks, Josh, have you played Dark Souls yet? Because I've played like every Souls-like. I played Neo, we played Sekiro, the whole shebang, and it really is like another like very fascinating take on design. Demon Souls made it into my book as well, and that's pretty much like the opposite of I think Plants vs. Zombies right there. And
Yeah. So, can you like how would you sell this game? Like all I've heard kind of about it is like these games are extremely difficult. And that alone is not enough to sell me on a game. Like what would you say is the real like appeal of these kind of games? Is it like the satisfaction that you get because it's so difficult?
I think for me, it's one of those games that really, I think, showcases the difference between like a novice and an expert player, and
I see.
it rewards that level of mastery. Like whenever I play a Dark Souls game, like the first like 30 minutes to an hour of me playing a new Dark Souls game, I will probably die 10 to 20 times easily. But you really start to see that growth over the course of playing the game.
Okay.
I was just starting to check.
So funny.
Because I play the character like there's even the harder start in Dark Souls or Demon Souls where you start with no gear whatsoever. So I always begin like that. So it does take half a game to get like a finished clothing set. But like it's one of those games where you can that the growth is on the player more than it is on the character. Like
Yes.
when you're good enough at a Dark Souls game, nothing in that game will touch you. Like we were talking about Sekiro. In Sekiro, I died about, I want to say, at least 60 to 80 times to beat the game on my very first run, having no idea what I was doing, horribly dying. These guys were watching me fail for a good hour or two before I just decided to start over. Then the second time I played that, when I did my video on it, I went through the whole game and only died like 5 times. And a lot of the boss fights, like I made it look easy. Like I would say, like on the video, this is a hard fight. Don't take this easy. This is gonna be a hard one. And then you just watch me beat the whole fight in like a minute and a half, like barely getting him. Like I did not oversell that. Like I promise you, that was harder than it looks. But it's very hard, I think. Is Cuphead would be another good example of that. Like Cuphead lays everything out bare for the player, and then it's kind of up to you to figure that out. One of my
Josh, would you say you're really good at video games?
I would,
or on like above, you're pretty skilled.
I need to be careful saying that because I have the entire chat waiting to meme this as we speak. I know News has got his fingers on the keyboards right now.
Okay.
I would
Right.
put myself. I always say that. Oh, we have a meme there for a game that they rate me as average in it. But I would say that I would say above average. Like I think for me, yeah, I don't do
Yeah.
fighting games or simulations. Like I'm horrible at like sim style games like Spin Tires, Truck Simulator, all those kinds of games.
Right.
I don't think other than maybe like the platformer and action genre, where I would say that I'm really good at, I would say I'm above average. Like I tend to be somebody who plays. Oscar's going to just name them all, isn't he? I would say that. I would say that I'm more above average in a lot of genres, but there's very
Right.
few genres that I would say that I am the absolute master. Like you could put me down, I could speed run that game, world record easily. I did get a
Yeah.
world record in Cuphead. I had it for 15 minutes. Like right after that game came out, I did a world record run in it.
Wow. Well, congrats on that. You also, I heard you beat Contra without the 30 lies code.
Yeah. And
So
we did that on
there's some
stream
skills right
too,
there.
so I proved that to those folks
Yeah.
watching. They know I did that. You can't you can't say I'm lying there. But yeah, like there are a lot what was I about to say? Now I lost my point there. Let's see, the stealth. Like
We're talking about Souls likes.
yeah, like there are a lot of games like thank you. Like I would one of my first posts or one of my first articles I wrote for Gamma Sutra. This was back in I think 2012, 2013. Was comparing Demon Souls to Mario, specifically to the 3D Mario games, and
Okay.
how both series reward the player's mastery, and you play those games differently based on your knowledge. And that's kind of how I equate like the Souls like, or at least the better ones. That once you kind of crack that code, it's almost like a night and day difference compared to like let's say like an old school like as we were talking about platformers. Like if you're a master at playing Super Mario World, you're still going to be doing the same general path as somebody who's still learning that game. Like you can't skip or get through stuff on skill alone, unless we're talking about glitches and speedrunning tech. But in something like Dark Souls or the Souls likes, when you're good enough, like the game, it just feels like a completely different game to you. But like this is a
Okay.
very funny thing. Like I had a conversation instead with another guy named Josh, and he asked me this question: like, do you think that it's harder to learn Call of Duty or harder to learn a game like Sekiro? and we kind of talked about like multiplayer versus single player design because they really appeal, I think, to different audiences or different mindsets.
Huh. So you're saying compared to Mario, just a kind of it's a higher total skill cap, or that's just the the amount your game changes for you when you get better is just there's a huge gap between
Yeah,
even like being like extremely good at a Mario game and then being extremely good at a Souls like,
yeah, like
and that's
I would say like if you look at the 3D Mario games, I think they are a really great example of that kind of design. Did you have a chance to play Super Mario Odyssey yet?
I did. I love that
Yeah.
game.
Like for me, like the first time I played through that, it did not work for me. Like I felt like something was off. Like it just I wasn't really enjoying it all that well.
Josh, we like all the opposite
I
games.
know.
You, I like Castlevania 2 the most. Odyssey, not you're not as big on that one.
But oh,
But
I
yeah,
almost
what was it
finished the
about it
story
that?
though.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
But
sure.
when I while I was writing the book a few months ago, I replayed that game from start to finish, and I
Uh huh.
enjoyed it a lot more that second time. And
And
part of
why do
that
you think that
was
was? Yeah.
I was using more of the cat mechanics. I was kind of playing the game more with the knowledge of how these moves worked, as opposed to trying to play it as an earlier Mario game. Like, obviously, since you play, you know, like you can do like the stomp jump to get yourself a lot more height. You can do like throw the
Yeah.
cap ahead, hold it, run into the cap, and that bounces Mario up. I was doing more
Mm-hmm.
of that as opposed to just straight like triple jumping or wall jumping to spin jumps. And what I found was I was getting through the game not only faster, but I was finding new paths through those levels that I didn't think were possible. And I think another part of that was watching. I watched somebody speedrun the game. I think this was, I think the last Awesome Games Done Quick event, and I was watching
Right.
them play. I'm like, like this is entirely different from how I play that game. And then when I started doing it, it was just enjoying it a lot more.
So you do you find that happens for you? Watching runner play the game, someone who's like extremely good, to kind of give you an idea of like here is what you'll be playing the game
Hmm.
extremely good at it, and that kind of like what you should be doing in this game, and that helps you enjoy it more.
I think for me, like
Like
I've
I
tried
yeah.
to keep this rule that I never watch a speedrun of a game until after I've played it and beaten it at least one time. Like I always try
Okay.
to get like the my experience first, and then kind of see how things go from there. I did the same thing with Resident Evil 2, for instance. Like the first time I played
Okay.
through that, it took me I think good 8 or 9 hours of me just fumbling through. No help from chat, no help from anybody.
Hmm.
And then right after that, I started watching people speed run, or I started reading about advanced techniques for it, and then that completely changed how I play that game. And I think part of it is that I think you can really there are a lot of games that I think you can really only play one time. Like that one pure experience. Unless you're like me, like I played so many games I tend to forget that experience, and then I return to those games like 4 or 5 years later, and it's like, oh, it's all new to me. Like at some point, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
do that with Breath of the Wild again.
Oh, that'll be a cool experience.
Hmm.
So, given that this is kind of the stuff that gets you enjoyment out of games, was Plants vs Zombies. Uh, did that game have its kind of appeal to you still, or was it just not? Like Plants vs Zombies is not a game that rewards you
Hmm.
for skilling up. Like there's not a massive skill curve that you can
Hmm.
really get better at the game. It is an extremely easy game. It's some parts of it are disguised to make it not feel like as easy as it is.
Hmm.
Just a quick example, for instance, the we did like some stat collecting just
Hmm.
to kind of see We did this with the beta testers, and zero people. So the final boss of the game, I feel like the final boss of Plants vs Zombies feels like not. It doesn't feel like a cakewalk. Yet in our stats, zero people lost on the final boss of the game, which is like in a Souls like that's like totally backwards, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that is that would just give you no satisfaction to find out a fact like that no people died on the final boss in any of those games. So is like uh does Plants vs Zombies, yeah, that was just something that I was, in making this game, like am I okay with the game being like as extremely easy as it is? um and one of the reasons for that was that the programmer Todd Semple, our programmer on the game, likes his games very, very easy, and so I think that was part of the influence. But I think there was something. I'm kind of like going over like lots of different topics. So something that I've noticed in Plants vs Zombies is that despite it being really easy, it was just kind of fun to watch your plants shoot at these zombies. I think that's part of that comes from just tower defense in general. Like, but yeah, there was just something where the game didn't necessarily need to be hard because it was the just that moment of like while a zombie is advancing on you and you're just shooting with peas, that is I can't really describe to you why, but that is like that was just satisfying to just watch that.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason the game is kind of deceptively like it is easier than it looks is the we included the lawnmowers in the game, which I think to a someone who's not versed with like game design, that would it would obviously be something that would make the game easier for you, but just by how much people I don't think realize like the lawnmowers being in the game make the game extremely easy.
Yes.
And so just not like when I think of Plants vs Zombies challenge, the last thing I would think of, right? So is it so liking the kind of games you do, like do you feel like well you included Plants vs Zombies in your book. So there was something about it that you feel like, right, people should study. But do you think there's just a certain kind of player that knowing that Plants vs Zombies isn't challenging at all just would not be accepting of it, right?
Yeah, I do think like there are people who would as I said in the chapter, there are a lot of people out there who kind of put their nose down at the quote unquote casual game. Like the idea that unless a game is brutally difficult, it's not worth playing. Like for myself, like I've had fun playing games that have no punishment mechanics, no threat of failure, just as I've played hardcore, very challenging games along those lines. I think, like, for me, like, one aspect that I really liked about Plants vs. Zombies is kind of like the reward system you set up. Not only in terms of unlocking new flowers, but also the breaks, like I think it was like every 5 or 6 levels you threw in like that kind of mini game to it. And just as a way of always giving you something new to do. Like the first time I played through that game, it never felt like I was repeating like the same thing again and again. Like it didn't feel like a grind. Now, I don't think, like for myself, I'm trying to remember, I don't think I beat hard mode or New Game Plus. I did play
Yeah.
it, but I think that was about the time that I was starting to get a little bit tired of the game, just because I went through the whole game, I did the challenges, I basically did like all
Yeah,
the
I
other
think
stuff.
yeah, doing all the other stuff is really where we were looking to steer you.
Hmm.
The that you didn't beat New Game Plus is certainly as like a designer, I was New Game Plus existed more as like, well, we're giving you the option to do it if you want to,
Yeah.
rather than like I would much rather you go through and experience all the
Hmm.
other modes like Vase Breaker and iZombie before doing before
Hmm.
just replaying the game. It I do think we bumped up the difficulty, but uh, difficulty alone in a game like Plants vs Zombies doesn't really. I feel like it doesn't really mean much, and so I mean, in a New Game Plus, we changed it up in that Crazy Dave gives you some amount of random plants that you must use, kind
Hmm.
of like as a way to switch things up. And I think that was like doing something like that is necessary in a game like Plants vs Zombies because it is not just challenging for challenging sake, right?
Yes.
It is like it's a way to make you use. It's a way to make it feel like a unique experience the second time through. It's a way to get you to use some plants that you might not have paid much attention to the first time, and so it doesn't surprise me that you didn't beat it the second time through. Did you play enough to get the Yeti zombie?
I don't think I did. I
Okay,
was looking
well
for that because I
that
think that's
is
one of like the few
yeah
achievements I didn't get in the game.
yeah right. That is supposed to be like like a very secret Easter eggy thing, and so I didn't mind hiding it in the like a future playthrough of adventure mode. But however, yeah, if you ask me like what would I want players to do most after beating the game, I definitely like say like funnel them to the mini games or to one of
Hmm.
the other awesome modes that we spent that last year coming up with.
Yeah. And like I like what you said there about not having challenge for challenge sake, because I think that's another really big misconception for a lot of people. That again, like going back to the whole Souls like that, there's people who view difficulty as greatness. That if nobody can beat a
Hmm.
game, then it must be a great and well designed game. But I've really come off from that over the last few years. Like I always find like it's a lot harder to make a balanced game than it is an easy or hard game. Like the
Hmm.
perfect example that I'm curious if you've heard of this one would be the La Mulana franchise.
I have played that one. That was
Mm,
pretty great. I
yeah.
haven't played the second one yet,
Hmm. Like for
but
me, I found
yeah.
those to be just in a lot of cases just difficulty for the sake of being difficult in a few areas,
Oh, I see. Yep.
and I have not beaten any of those games. Like I bet if I sat down with like the strategy guy next to me, I could get through that game easily. But
Right.
trying to beat that game completely blind is just a very tough experience.
Yeah, that kind of also leads to right. La Mulana was kind of it knew its audience,
Hmm.
which was like more core gamers, and so it could keep the difficulty like raised high because that's kind of the expectation. Something that kind of struggled with in making my games is like, what do I do? What do I do to kind of like, I am in general shooting for a much wider audience
Hmm.
balance. Like there are, yeah, I'm trying to say like, well, there are people who don't play games much, and I want them to enjoy I want them to make just as much as someone who's more core. So I have kind of I've spent a good amount of time thinking about that as well. Like the maybe the first thing you might decide to do is the whole select your difficulty, right? Like a lot of games tend to do, and you'll notice that's not in any of my games, and that's because it's partially because of just like personal experience I have with that system. I never feel like I'm picking the right.
Yes.
I never feel like I'm picking the right one. If I pick easy, I feel like I am, I don't know, like ashamed slightly. And if I pick hard, I know I'm gonna be miserable. So I tend to pick normal, but normal also means different things in different games. I just
Hmm.
there's no like I don't know. I don't feel like there's much good that can come of that system. So I always try to look for alternatives in my games.
Yeah.
Um, and there's dynamic difficulty adjustment kind of systems, right? Like you can do that kind of like tweaking things um, on the fly based on how well your player is doing. However, I really feel like okay, so here's like if I really try to avoid the systems where if a player catches wind of your system, it just cheapens their whole experience, or it makes it so like if they so for instance, if your game is pretty, but if you sense your player is just like not really good, and you're just like, well, okay, you set the bar super low, so the player doesn't have to do that much, and someone finds out about this, and they're the type that just wants to blaze through a game to get the game's experience, and someone finds out about this, kind of like they can kind of cheat that system and just do the bare minimum, just enough to get by,
Hmm.
get through the game really quickly, and I feel like stuff like that where once the player discovers it, like they hear about it for whatever reason, the game no longer maintains its integrity. I feel like those are systems to avoid as well.
Hmm.
So I can tell you what Plants vs Zombies does is, well, one is we do things like give you give you lawnmowers, right? So it's the game is very easy, but you can kind of like take pride in not losing any of the lawnmowers or something like that, right? So it's kind of it's some games do like you can earn bonus stars by kind of achieving these extra kind of like lateral.
Yeah.
Um, Also, the zombies spawn at a given rate. It is kind of it is kind of like on the lenient side where there is the base rate is geared more toward the casual player. So you'll be able to catch your breath in between before the next wave comes usually. However, if you're doing pretty good and you're killing the zombies pretty quickly, the game detects when you are somewhere between like 70 or 80%. When the current wave's health is below 70 or 80%, then it will send the next wave immediately as a way to kind of like, well, I mean, if we didn't do this, you'd just be bored out of your mind as
Yeah.
nothing would happen for like 20 seconds, right? It is kind of like it's not really like we're not changing the health of any of the zombies. We are just keeping the pace of the game to your like we're pacing the game to your skill level. It is something I feel like once you find out about it, like say like you're a player and you find out about this, it doesn't really like change the way you necessarily still going to play it
Hmm.
to your best.
Yeah.
Um, and this is something that doesn't apply to many games, but so Dr. Zomboss is the mastermind sending you all the zombies. Zombies in general aren't very, very smart, but I can just imagine this final boss kind of like witnessing his hordes of zombies, that wave of zombies he sent at you didn't work, and so he's just like, all right, send the other one immediately, right? So it's just kind of like, for all those reasons, I feel like the system we devised in Plants vs Zombies works well. But it's just like, yeah, this is some of the stuff I definitely like think about. Some of it's catered to my own taste in games, but yeah, I've had a couple of experiences in games where once I found out about the dynamic difficulty adjustment system behind the scenes, the game wasn't the same for me anymore. Yeah. So I definitely, when making a game, I try to avoid that I try to avoid systems like that if all possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like for myself, I'm the same way. Like, I don't like, for most games, I'll play them on the hard mode. I mean, the only ones I play on like the normal difficulty would be like RPGs, because I think for those, it's not really like focused on the player's skill as much. It's more about the stats or the abstraction. So like, you can't really get better at a turn-based RPG. Like, if your character only has 30 health points, you can't, click your button any faster to avoid getting hit there.
Right. RPGs in general are a lot more character skill.
Yeah.
Like leveling up rather than player skill.
Yeah.
Right. The percentage is much higher over there. I mean, there is some, like, it wouldn't be fun if it was 100% just character skill, I think. Like, I feel like it requires some part of it that you feel like you're getting better at. However, right, it is the way more toward your character leveling up than your actual player skills level. Yep.
Yeah, and I think like for me, like when it comes to difficulty, like I don't like games that make things harder by just adjusting stats. Again, if you play any action game, many of them, they have hard mode, extra hard mode, whatever. They'll just give enemies like 10 times more health, or they'll let them do 5 times more damage and call it a day. One of my favorite games was The World Ends With You by Square Enix. And one of the things I
remember that game.
Yeah, and one of the things I loved about that game was you had complete freedom to adjust the difficulty, and will reward you based on how you adjusted that difficulty. And I think that's what some of my favorite games, when it makes it interesting or more challenging in unique ways, but also rewards you for doing that. Like, it kind of gives you, like, I always see it as like that little like tip of the hat for showing your mastery at the game.
I see. Yeah.
And
it's always more interesting too if I mean, as designers, we are in charge of like crafting the experiences for right, and it feels a lot cheaper if we're just like, okay, you're supposed to enjoy this new experience, and all we did was multiply each number by the same amount across the board. Like, it took the designer literally 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And we're expecting like, oh, you're going, like, we want you to get like that much more enjoyment. And I'm like, no, you gotta really think about what would be like a great experience for your player. And that is usually not it.
Yeah, like I remember when I played Nier, like the Nier Automata series. In the second one, what they did was, on normal difficulty, you could survive 8 hits from enemies, and you could kill them in 2 hits. When you go to hard difficulty, they reverse those numbers. Now, enemies take 8 hits to die, and you'll die in 2 hits. And I was just like, it's a challenge, but I don't feel like I'm being rewarded. I just feel like I'm basically just, by choice, punching myself in the face to play the game at this difficulty.
Right.
Now, speaking about the lawnmowers, do you have anything you want to say?
Let's talk lawnmowers.
There's one thing I wanted to bring up, because I thought this was another very fascinating part. Again, about like rewarding the player, in the sense that, as we were saying, like the lawnmowers themselves, and for people if you somehow stumble upon this chat and don't know what Plants vs Zombies is, the lawnmowers are the literal last line of defense. When a zombie reaches kind of like the game over part on the screen, the lawnmower activates, it kills all these zombies in that lane. And one thing you could do is if you get to the final challenge, like the final wave, and you still have all your lawnmowers, you automatically win. Because the second they
Mm-hmm.
get there, they'll just kill them all. And
Yep.
as news and foreign and chat were saying, like they try to get through without using the lawnmowers. And one thing I want to ask you about, George, is like as you said, there are games that will kind of either reward or acknowledge like expert actions. Be a level with 3 stars. Don't take more than 20% of damage, etc. And they'll
Mm-hmm.
sometimes have like those marks, or like I call like a
Yep.
trophy room screen with Plants vs
Right.
Zombies. Was there like any point like having that, like having like a badge of honor, like a mark saying you've been this level without any lawnmowers or things like that?
So, like I said, I made Plants vs Zombies at PopCap,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, they are a casual games company, but a lot of their games are filled with what is it, like an
Mm-hmm.
incentive structure. A lot of their puzzle games, it would flash stuff on the screen for whenever you got like a point system to emphasize different things you could go for. I can imagine for some, it's like, oh, that is cool because now I have some other, you know, other gameplay
Mm-hmm.
goals. Like rather than just finishing a level, I can finish it with the max number of points, and I can go for these lateral strategies that I wasn't really focused on before. That if I just had to get through the level, um, I can do that. So that's in general the design philosophy behind a lot of PopCap games was such.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you play any of the other ones, for instance, like Peggle, they're all a decent amount of this. Plants vs Zombies didn't really do much of this, and hmm, it is it is directly because it was designed by someone like me, who I feel like sometimes like that kind of stuff in games can be excessive. It can be noise that takes you away from what you could be, you know, some gameplay that you could be more satisfied with, or that could be more satisfying.
Um,
Maybe, yeah.
George, I don't want to interrupt you. We kind of lost the stream for a second.
Oh no.
1 second
Ooh.
here. What's going on? Are
Okay.
we back? Oh, that was weird. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here with YouTube.
A while back said uh, people were saying yes, it's back now, but oh, it's down a second time. Ooh.
Yeah, what the heck is going on
Hmm.
here? It's showing.
This is not our night.
No, okay, it's showing. I think we're back now.
Okay.
That is weird. Yeah,
Are
but
we?
we were.
Are we?
Yeah, I think we're back. That is. I don't know what's going on there with YouTube acting up. It doesn't seem to be. I don't think it's internet related. Like my internet has not cut off at all. I don't know. That is odd. But yeah, I think we were back. For people like I think we were cutting in and out there. We were talking about having incentive systems and kind
Mm-hmm.
of why Plants vs Zombies didn't have too many of those compared to like the other PopCap games.
Yeah. So, oh, yeah, other PopCap games would have like all kinds of like point reward systems. They would reward you for doing this or doing that, and certainly that was suggested by the other designers at
Mm-hmm.
PopCap. I generally avoided it, um, and I generally avoided it because of probably because of personal preference in games, where so I do feel like taken to, you know, the extremes, like that kind of stuff can be excessive. Certainly, like I think everyone has a point where that stuff just becomes noise. I think that point for me might be lower than maybe an average game player. Like I might be more sensitive to that, but I just don't like I feel like some of the stuff I was talking about in that talk you referenced, the 2012 talk, is like you wanna you don't want to create too much noise for the player because they're a lot more likely to miss something that you do want them to see, right? And so something I don't want the player to miss is just like the the moment to moment satisfaction of like, oh, planting, like choosing what plants to plant, or checking if I have enough sun, and or deciding which lane to plant your three-peater in. It's like, I think the reason I didn't do any of the other stuff is that is what I wanted this player's satisfaction to come from. And I feel like if I did if I did enough of that, the just kind of like bells and whistles, he kind of rewards you for placing two, like, for instance, suggestions like, oh, if you put two of the same plant down in succession, like you could reward the player like a sun reward for that or something. And the things like that were suggested, and I mean, due to personal preference and maybe just like, okay, is what is the overarching design philosophy for this game? I just kind of left a lot of that out, and as just because I think I want players to focus on that pure, like like you should be you should be able to get enjoyment out of that base gameplay. And I feel like if there's a certain kind of game that maybe it's like the gameplay needs that fluff kind of around it to kind of really be satisfying. But I wanted Plants vs Zombies to stand on its own, and I wanted you to be able to just focus on those bits of satisfying gameplay I I intended for you. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
we've seen, like I was that actually leads me to this next question I had for you. When you play games that kind of have like those extra challenges, those little extra rewards, are you the kind of player who stays on a level until you've completed that? Or do you play through and like whether you get a 1 star or a 3 star, it doesn't matter. You just move on to the next level and the next.
So I am I am geez, wait, no. Okay, so I'm trying to think of what I do. I was gonna say I am the type of player to play through the game first without worrying about the star system, and then go back. If I like the game enough, I will go back and attempt the stars. However, I know that I've played so right. Sometimes it's like time is the most valuable commodity, right? So my mindset is like I think this is less enjoyable for me overall. However, sometimes because time is important, I'll be playing a game, and if I know I want to star it, I will beat a level with like 1 or 2 stars, not all three, and then I'll go back and get that third star right away. But not because I think that's what I enjoy the most. I don't enjoy that pace as much as more casually being the whole game first, and then going back to attempt the more challenging, getting all 3 stars. However, time is pretty important for me, so I figure I do want to have the accomplishment of 3 starring this whole game. However, this level is most fresh in my mind right now, so I will, for some games, I will go and 3 star immediately. However, that is not the pacing of gameplay I prefer. I think I prefer the first thing I said.
Yeah, I think like for me, it's always like a very tough situation because I've ran into those games where I'll get so bogged down trying to three-star it or master it that it
Yeah,
kind of
I've been
like
there.
sullies the experience for me. And
Hmm.
like I was just looking up this one game. Like there's this casual game that I played, the 12 Labors of Hercules. It's kind of like a I don't want to say like a real-time strategy game. It's kind of like a oh, this is a good challenge. I'm not sure how I would describe this one. They describe it as a time management game. I guess that's kind of apt. Where the levels again, like to get through it like one star, it's nothing. Like you can close your eyes and click on the map, and you'll get one star through it. But if you want
Yes.
that three-star, we're getting into seconds in terms of how you optimize your path through it. If you want to get that perfect rating.
Yes, and you're saying was that the game that just
Yeah,
drove
like it
you
has like the
batty?
what I like I said I call it a trophy room that the map will update as you complete challenges. Like that to me, I think is always a great motivator to say that it's not just you beating the level and then saying I beat it. You can have like the map have like a nice little graphic effect. You have like a little statue or things like that. But it did start to get very slow for me. And again, as you said, like time is such a big factor.
Yep.
Like, oh my goodness, like when we're done with the stream, if we may not get it done. We may just keep talking for the next day or so. Like, there's still like I have over like 1,000 games in my Steam catalog, and I have barely touched any of those games. And as we said, like time is such an important value. Like I don't have that time anymore to sit down and master it.
So, right, when you mentioned that,
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking for um for for Octogeddon, for instance, there is an achievement system in that game. Essentially, you
Yeah.
can earn medals for certain but we don't unlock that until you've beaten the game, and it's
Yes.
kind of for the same reason. I was just thinking of your situation there, and perhaps that game wouldn't have led you to that frustration if like until you beat it, like once you beat it, that's when the star system unlocks, and then you have the option of like going through it again and replaying some levels with a different perspective that'll give you like it'll let you have the satisfaction of however that while you're going through it you can just focus on that level to level
Yeah.
experience. Like I just passed that level, and it's like, especially when you are before you are like completely engrossed in a game, it's really important that the pacing isn't like additive, that like you're just like sick of playing the game, even though new content to come. Like you're already sick of playing it because of the systems that have been built in. Like I'm replaying a level 50 times to get all 3 stars in it. That's like I don't think that's generally that's less enjoyable for most, right? And so yeah, it just makes me think like what if that game kept the star system. I mean, this is it's not universally the solution, right? Because the whole point of a star system is like to give you the option to go for it is like we said, it is a kind of like a way to adjust difficulty. Like you can make the game as difficult as you like. I do like this in some games. It's like if I want to, I can do one run on this level and shoot for all 3 stars at once, or I can do a run on this level and shoot for one of the 3 stars. Like it is up to me, or I can shoot for none of them, right? Like it is up to me how difficult I want to make this level. And I think giving players that freedom is really nice. However, I think
Mm-hmm.
so it's a case by case basis depending on the game, right? Like you in that game, it might have served it better to just keep that star system gated completely until at least a certain point, or maybe after you beat the game once. And that way, if you're still into it, now you can go back and, you know, replay some of these levels, getting further enjoyment out of the game. Whereas because they kept it locked, like it was just a smoother progression through the main game, and you wouldn't kind of basically stuck on these points where you felt like you had to 3-star it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just in general, we crave like more variety, and so letting you get beat a level and then play the next one, that is generally more enjoyable than having you replay a level like 50 times before advancing. And so yeah, maybe that game could have done with keeping certain parts of it locked until
Mm-hmm.
afterward. I think, would you say that
I,
do you think you would have enjoyed the game more if you could focus on getting through it the first time rather than obsessing over the stars?
I think it would be like a lot easier to go through it. I think the one worry you have to consider there is that the game should be tracking like how well you're actually playing. As in, like, if I do get like a 3 star without realizing it, don't make me replay the entire game from scratch, kind of thing. Because we've seen some
Hmm.
games do that where, it won't count progress until the game is actually tracking it.
I see.
Like,
Yeah, right.
now, uh,
I see both sides of that.
yeah,
Like, yes, you like if you basically 3-starred this level and they're just making you do it again, that
mm-hmm,
is that on one hand is it just felt like if you especially if you remember what you did, you're
mm-hmm,
like it's like asking you to like get over 2,000 points and you remember you got 2,000 points on that level. That feels super frustrating.
mm-hmm,
However, the other side of that is like you say like you beat the game and you see all these stars for things like it's just I think it's you lose the satisfaction of actually hitting these goals. Like uh if you beat the game and you go through the world map and you see like, oh, I've already starred all these things, likely you won't remember
yeah,
you won't remember what accomplishments you did. Like, how did I get all these stars? I don't know. Like part of the point of stars is to like reward you for like immediately for the accomplishment you just did and in context, right? Like that's really important. I feel like a delayed star much less valuable than a star that you like it shows you the star right afterward and it tells you what you did rather than the tricky part is like you did this 3 hours ago and now we're rewarding you for it. That is also a tricky
yeah,
thing to do, right? So actually know the best answer for this, like that's right. That is why
mm-hmm,
discuss it like this, right?
yeah.
And yeah,
And it is tricky. Like every game would handle it differently, especially depending upon the market that you're aiming for. If you're trying to build your game around like more of a core or hardcore group, then they probably want that information like the second they've done it. They want that reward. Like they don't want to be told 5 hours later, oh, you went from 10% done to now 65% done just because we turned on like the stat recording going forward, kind of thing.
yep.
Now, here's an interesting question for you, George. Like in keeping with like this idea of reward or acknowledging the player, I gotta ask you your thoughts on Celeste. Did you have a chance to play that?
I haven't played that yet. That's on my list of something to check out. Are we going to? What I know about it is that there is a. Are we talking about the all the different sliders to adjust difficulty in all kinds of ways? Is that
That could certainly be part of it, but the one
okay?
thing I wanted to ask you about is that the game features an additional reward or additional challenge in the form of strawberries, so you can pick up in each level. They're always
Yes.
set up in a harder to reach spot. Now, the thing
Right.
about the game is that there is no real acknowledgement or reward or anything for getting those strawberries.
There's
And
not even a some menu somewhere to tell you how many you've gotten
I
or
think that is the only thing it does. Like if you
okay.
collect all the strawberries, there's no like in-game pop-up. There's no like screen saying, "Hey, you got all the strawberries." There's nothing.
Okay. So you don't get some like fireworks show at the end, but there is a stat somewhere
Yes.
that tells you how many strawberries you have.
Hmm.
Okay. I think for a lot of people, that's that's enough right there.
Hmm.
At least like I was thinking like it was like it just didn't there was no indication at all. Like you just collected strawberries purely for kicks. But yeah, okay, so there at least there's that. Okay, well that helps me frame it.
Hmm.
Yeah, were are you a strawberry collector?
Oh yes, to a certain point. I think there were a few times I was just like, I'm done. Like I don't want to do this section again," kind of
Yeah.
thing, because it gets hard. Like I was like, I talked to people about. It, I was like, a lot of people think Celeste is a casual game because it has that assist mode. No, it is a hard game. Like if you try to beat like the B side or C side, that's basically hard and extra hard levels. They will take some
Yeah.
time.
Okay. Okay. Right. Who thinks it's a casual game?
Like
That's right.
yeah, like and that's what I was sort of saying in chat about kind of the assist mode. Like I think like this kind of goes back to what we were just saying in terms of difficulty sliders. Like I always felt like I feel the same way about the adventure genre. Like I don't know how good you are at adventure games, but for me, I am. There are puzzles that I am horrible at, like puzzle designs that I will never solve in a million years. And
Hmm.
the second I run into those, I will just immediately turn to a hint guide. But then once that happens, I just start reading like all the hints. Like I can't help myself. And
I see.
most of the time when I get to that point, I just stop playing the game. Like I feel like I'm not playing the game anymore. It just feels like I'm
Oh,
just following the guide.
yeah. I am definitely like right. I avoid reading any hints at all
Hmm.
costs for probably those same reasons. Like
Yeah.
if I once I start, I feel like I'll just devour it all, or just
Hmm.
I can't really. It's so hard to just read one hint, and so I yeah I make a huge effort to try to at least the main game beat that before like looking up anything. Just because right that is what's satisfying. Like
Hmm.
I feel right like that is figuring this stuff out on your own is what the game is all about to me. And so right, and I feel like if I think it's different if I feel like the game is unfairly, but then why am I playing that game in the
Yeah.
first? Like I have so many other games I could be playing.
Yeah.
I feel like if the game is good and I get so much satisfaction out of figuring stuff out on my own that I really avoid reading like any kind of like hints before I beat the game. I think once I beat it and it's like talking about like post like game like post end game stuff kind of,
Hmm.
um, then I'm much more open to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for me, like we try to play. What was it? The Seventh Guess online. That adventure game. This was like I think 2 3 months ago. And like I had
Okay.
no idea how to solve a variety of those puzzles. One of my friends, like he sent me, he goes, "Josh, I got the hint guide for you. I use here it is," and he sent me like, it was like a 5-page description of how to solve this puzzle. I'm like, I don't even know what this is, let alone what the puzzle's asking me to
Right.
do.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we've also come a long way since
Yeah.
then. So, right, it's seventh guest isn't the bar to hold everything to. Like I
No.
feel like modern adventure games will just tackle that a lot
Hmm.
better, not require that 5-page explanation or whatnot.
Hmm. I guess, and as a quick time check, we are past like 11:50. I can keep going. Like I can feel like I can keep going for like as long as you're able to, George. Um,
Yeah.
I figure.
I
Yep.
yeah. How about we do like one or two more topics
Hmm.
and then we can
Say
wrap
goodbye
this
for
one up.
now, but then
Yeah.
we can come back another time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. Again, like we can go back to reminiscing about NES games for another 40 minutes. We could kill a few hours
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
I mean, yeah. I'd
But
be down. Yeah.
I
But
know the
right.
chat does want to hear a little bit more about Plants vs Zombies, and again,
Yeah,
we've
let's
been
do
kind
it.
of talking in and out about casual design all night, and we can again, I am more than happy to do a part two, three, or how many more parts you're able to for a cast. But for people who don't know, I do also want to congratulate you. Of course, this being it was 3 days ago, well, 4 days as soon as we hit midnight here, a 10-year
Hmm.
anniversary for Plants vs. Zombies.
Yes. Happy birthday, Plants vs. Zombies. 10 years old.
Your little zombie there has a birthday hat and the little confetti in his mouth there, or the streamer. I, I guess I just wanted to ask, and this next question, I don't know, this may be kind of NDA or whatever. If it is, just let me know. But
All right.
with regards to Plants vs. Zombies 2, the one that was made kind of, I think that was after PopCap was acquired by EA, I guess.
It was made, it was definitely started
Mhm.
before PopCap was acquired. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm just going through.
Mhm.
Yeah, it might have been released afterward.
Mhm. And I guess my question was like it, I know that one didn't seem to capture like the same magic. I know a lot of people, I think at the time, argue was like kind of like the mobile influence coming in for that one. I guess
Hmm.
like what were your thoughts? And again, I don't want to get you in any trouble with anything, NDA. Just let me know. What were
Okay,
your
I'll be
thoughts?
careful.
What were like kind of like your thoughts on kind of like, and this actually leads us into our casual talk as well. What are kind of like
Yeah.
your thoughts on like mobile design, kind of taking
Oh,
the reins of casual gameplay? Because as you said, like you went from Blizzard to PopCap, and PopCap again, like 10 years ago, like they were like that was pretty much like I felt like the golden age of casual games. Like they made some of my favorites, Peggle, Bookworm, the whole shebang, and
yeah. Those are some good days.
yeah.
So yeah, I'll just kind of I'll say that when the iPhone first came out, it was a pretty awesome time for me. I would just go to the App Store, all kinds of games that would look
Hmm.
interesting, download a bunch, just have like, you know, anywhere between 10 and 20 that I'd be just like playing through. It was some really good times. And comparing that, like, so, right, that was a different breed of mobile game, right? Like, comparing that to like what what mobile games I play these days is just
Hmm.
it's not that exciting to me anymore. Like I
Yeah.
feel like the kind of gameplay that's predominant now it just is not doesn't interest me. Uh, the whole the whole I don't know what the term is, but the whole like here's some gameplay and you can bypass it by paying money. Like I
um,
feel like that is just I mean if I had to break it down, it's because that is balanced by the designer. Like prior to this, it was like if there was any kind of sort of waiting or grinding in a game, it was balanced so that it would be the most satisfying. Like
yes.
the pacing should be that you are acquiring the resources for this, and it is at the perfect pace for you to feel like just having put in some quote work into it, you're feeling just satisfied enough like to feel even more like your reward is well earned, or yeah, like I have like I spent this much grinding for 100 gold, now I have to choose what to spend it on. That is like that is an interesting decision I can make. I don't just have unlimited amounts of money. I have to choose what I'm going to spend this 100 gold on. I feel like the designers now kind of purposely make it tedious for you
Hmm.
so that you're incentivized to skip that part of gameplay. So it's like I it's it's just pushed in a direction that it's like here now the normal gameplay if you don't pay anything is just bad, and no one would I mean like okay, maybe right when you start playing the game, it's like the right pace, right? But soon we're going to start like veering things toward, okay, you're kind of hooked now. You're not really having like you've gotten over the initial like kind of neat game hooks, and now you're kind of like addicted to this game. We'll make these like cycles like extra prolonged. You need way too much money to get to advance yourself, and look how tedious it is. Look how much you don't want to spend all this time or wait this long doing this now, or you can just pay a little bit and bypass it all, save yourself the pain. It's just like I feel like so many games and like on the mobile app store are just cut from that mold these days, that I'm just like it's nowhere near like the joy I had, early on in like the infancy of the app store, where it was just like so many kind of like brand new game experiences coming out. And yeah, because I really like casual games. Like they are like, right, as I mean, I make them, so it's like, right, I do love them, and I feel like like had kind of mobile games gone down a different path, like I would just, there'd be I would just look at my phone with so much more happiness and be like, oh, look, like, wow, which game of all these awesome new experiences am I going to play today? But no, it's not the case really anymore. Like,
Yeah.
and that's just really sad. Like, I wish it didn't go this way, but that's just how now. So, right, with regards to, I mean, I especially initially, Plants vs Zombies 2 was defender of all these kind of principles. However, it is like, I mean, if we're looking at the spectrum, it is like it does start to like go down this path, right? Like it's a free game where they have to figure out how to get money from you. So, and we were just talking about like difficulty, right? So they kind of, I know some of the criticism was like they felt like a lot of players felt like they made certain levels just extremely difficult and to kind of make you buy the power-ups to get past the levels. And that is just not in the spirit of Plants vs Zombies at all. Like if you look at Plants vs Zombies 1, where things just that like challenge just wasn't part of Plants vs Zombies 1. So I think that took a lot of people off guard when Plants vs Zombies 2 came around. Was like, well, like, so this is what a challenging plan, like, and maybe, like I said before, maybe it's not balanced to be like a good amount of challenge. It's balanced in a way that like the end goal is they want you to pay for those power-ups.
Yeah.
So they are like, if in doubt, you're going to tend to like make a level slightly too hard so that you will just pay and be able to beat it. And so, yeah, that is just something. I mean, I know that's the way the mobile industry went, and like was a business, and they were in that industry, so it would be kind of ludicrous not to keep up with it. But yeah, it does make me sad that that's the direction the entire industry went. Like, yeah.
And like the like as you were describing there about having the player being able to buy out of bad design or stuff like that, the term that we've been throwing around has been quote unquote fun pain when you put that into a game. And yeah, it's definitely like a shame too. Like I think for myself and a lot of people, like when we first heard about Plants vs Zombies 2, like we were all excited about that, and I know a lot of us were waiting for it to come to the PC. And when like the news started to break out about that, I know it deflated a lot of people, and it really does like suck about. I can't really put. I could use some stronger words there, but it is such a shame about where mobile has gone. Like the game that I'm playing right
Right.
now, Marvel Strike Force. It's kind
Uh-huh.
of like the best of the worst that I've played.
that's
And
that's good.
yes, I know that's
Oh
we're
no.
damning it
Oh
with
no.
faint
Yeah. I
praise.
mean, you gotta have some game on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just so convenient to have something to play. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's just why. Why does it have to be like that, though? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's too bad.
And it's one of those, and like you said, like it's one of those internal problems of how do you get people to spend money, but in the same breath, you know, a great game. Like it reminds you a lot of. We could easily reminisce about the arcade industry now for the next hour as well. Like
Hmm.
a lot of the early generation arcade games that were designed inherently to be harder to get you to spend money. And
Yeah, that's right. That's a good parallel.
mhm,
It's let's see, what is the difference? Hmm.
like arcade games are probably more in your face about it. But yeah, like I spoke to like one of my frequent guests. He's a game economist, Ramin Shogazad. He does a lot of stuff on Gamma Sutra and his own stuff. Like we've talked
Right.
about this and how many of the mobile games, like there's so many little things they do to squeeze that money out of the player. And
Yep.
again, like as you said, like as we've said many times on these casts, that in a perfect world, like you wouldn't need these elements, but it has become such a prevalent part that is almost kind of like an arms race. Like if you don't have them and you try to get by on kind of being like the quote unquote premium game, most people aren't going to give your game the time of day. Super Mario Run ran into that problem.
Yep.
And I still remember that one article on Gamma Sutra where Nintendo actually went to the mobile developer of one of their games and said, make it less exploitive. And like that just like blew my mind when I read that.
Yeah, I'd even accept that these games have their place. I mean, that the premium game experiences, the pay once and just play, those
Mm-hmm.
still could be viable. Like it was half
Mm-hmm.
and half. Like I would even accept that. Like it's not like I want all these microtransaction filled experiences to just go away necessarily. But it's just right. The part that's sad to me is like on mobile, it's just pushed out the all this other kind of
Mm-hmm.
game I enjoy more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it right. Nintendo was like, don't don't put these shady things in this game, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they repeated that same experiment since then.
I don't know. I know Fire Emblem Heroes is still, I think, doing really well, and that one
Yeah,
is built on like that kind of gotcha loot box design.
yeah.
Now,
Oh,
like,
this is relevant. Just today, I saw something
mhm,
about how um, they're going to try to like they're passing laws to crack down on this, at
yeah,
least for minors.
mm-hmm,
Um, so there's a sliver of hope.
mm-hmm. Yep, here it is. Gamma Sutra proposed legislation aims to ban loot boxes in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's going to be very interesting to see because we've seen that kind of work its way into the AAA side as well, with many AAA games having loot box or that kind of progression model built into it. And
Yep.
it's
Right. On
definitely,
top of paying $60, you
yeah,
still right. Right. This is like a whole new level of experience. You're paying $60, and then you're still paying on top.
yeah. Now, speaking about games built on grinding and stuff like that, I gotta ask, have you played like any idle games, or what do you think of the idle genre?
uh, I let's see. They're fascinating to me, and I've gotten hooked on a few. Like I was a cookie clicker back in the day.
Me too. On one April
It,
Fool's Day, I'd stream me playing Cookie Clicker for like an hour. And I think Oscar was the
Yeah.
only one watching for that hour.
Yeah. So okay, so they're the ones that kind of like I remember playing some where they keep evolving as you
Hmm.
like the game changes like right under you as you open up more and more. Those are pretty interesting to me.
Hmm.
Um, it's the more monotonous ones that I find myself like, yeah, that's my brain says keep playing this because but I don't really want to be playing them anymore
Yeah.
because they're just, yeah. So yeah, I don't hate them or anything. They're super fascinating to me, and I have gotten sucked into playing a few. However, I would not say I'm like the biggest fan of that whole space. But
Hmm.
yeah, they're super interesting to me.
Yeah. I've gotten hooked on a few myself, and one of my favorites was this one called I think Realm Grinder that seemed to have like the most complexity of the idle genre.
Uh
Um,
huh.
One that we just played on stream lately that I thought was really great was the indie game Forager. If you had a chance to hear of that one,
I just saw something about that.
yeah,
Is that worth? Is that sort of a? It looked like more of a survival resource gathering game. Is it much of a clicker
it's a
or idle
resource.
game?
It's resource gathering, but there is like idle elements to it. Like it feels very much like an elevated idle game, if
Uh,
that makes sense. Like you're letting things go and you're doing tasks, but you unlock things that either make those tasks easier or give you more rewards to keep doing more things.
okay.
It's
Okay.
I really enjoyed it, and the fact that it came like straight out, it came from a game jam. I think it won like second place, was still like
Yeah.
very amazing. Like to see like that game develop. But yeah, it's a
Okay.
very interesting genre. And again, it's another one of those that it has kind of taken over, like, or like there are a lot of mobile games that have kind of taken over in that route for it, which is
Yep.
unfortunate because like we were playing the game Swag and Sorcery last night on stream, and it falls into this line of like running like a weapon shop or building weapons and sending characters out to like do stuff with them. Like one of my favorite games, Recketeer, from like it was like 4 or 5 years ago. No, I'm sorry, I think it's like 8 or 9 years now. And like the item shop genre, that item shop simulator, is one of my
Uh-huh.
favorites. But
Oh, okay.
everyone, but I think too many developers mess up on it. They either focus too much on the idle side, or they don't make the simulating or the simulation side all that interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, the way okay, so first, yeah, I'm really interested in this in Forager especially now. Sounds like something that could be right up my alley. And I'll also say previously like me of like maybe 10, 15 years ago would definitely be like, "Oh, this stuff that you just described like that Forager achieves,
Mm-hmm.
the utmost kind of like that hard to achieve like compulsion like oh you there's all these like layered goals that kind of make you want to play more like that is the stuff I would be looking to achieve the most
Mm-hmm.
like if someone complimented me with like and this is like back in the day this was the highest compliment I feel like someone could give to my game was like oh you're active and these days I am a lot I'm looking for that a lot less because of kind of what we just talked about like there's I'm recognizing like and I wish I wish it was just I could just purely kind of just be amazed by a game's just sheer addictiveness however because seeing this whole era of mobile games pop up where yeah you can definitely addicted to some of these be like totally aware that you're not having any fun playing it anymore, or yet you still are.
Mm-hmm.
That has just being around that has kind of shifted what I look like. I would much rather someone, for instance, say, "Oh, your game, I had so much fun with it," rather than, "Oh, your game just had me super addicted." Like
Mm-hmm.
that is a to me much higher praise nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And
But that said, I do really want to play Forager now, based on what you
there we
did.
go. But I think as I was thinking about this, that it really comes down to how games have changed. And as a time check, we're at about 12:20 my time, so I think this may be our final topic, at least for tonight. But we'll see how things go. But
Okay.
I was thinking about this that one of the things that was great about Plants vs Zombies, and again about a lot of the games that we've enjoyed, is that they are designed to end. There is an end point to these games. Even if you are addicted to
Yeah.
them, even if you want to play them from start to finish, there is in
Hmm.
fact a finish. But a lot of the mobile games and a lot of these more predatory titles, it just feels like they're designed not to have an ending. They're designed so you just keep
Right.
playing them forever and ever and ever, and what they hope you do is to spend money forever and ever and ever.
Right. Hmm. Well, it in some ways it is easier to design something with an end.
Yeah.
It's really hard to hit upon that like secret sauce where like you can you somehow come up with something that, barring like these really predatory like kind of just getting you hooked on just leveling for the sake of leveling, or um it's pretty hard to, it's like it's still interesting, even, like that makes you want to keep playing even though there's no end, that stays fresh, that kind of gives you that, oh, today when I play, I'm looking forward to it because just uh this will be, whatever new experiences that are in store for you. Like, so I think that's, I mean, that's one reason why games end is
Mm-hmm.
it's just hard to achieve the other the no ending version.
Mm-hmm.
However, yeah, I do agree. Like that is, if there's no end, if your game has no end, it's just uh, and you can keep playing. That is much more prone. Uh, yeah, that is. I mean, when we look at what mobile games are now, and not many of them have an end, and it's just because that means there's no end to how much money that that uh, their customers can give.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And like it's very hard. I think like taking this back to like Plants vs Zombies, even just something like Octogeddon. Like as a designer, how do you come up with the end like for your game? Like, and this is again like this is a topic we could spend a few hours on just by itself. But like,
Oh, that's easy. Just music video. Um, no, well, just a lot of my games have ended with some song and it's not. I mean, that's not really planned. That's just So what's my real answer? Like the question is, how do I come up with
how do you know when your
what a
game is over? Like when it's time to what is going to be like your final level? Because again, like something like Plants vs Zombies, for instance, or and Octogeddon, you could theoretically just
hmm,
keep pumping levels out. You could just change a tile set here and there, and you could have like a 30, 40 hour long game. But
yeah.
would that really keep people wanting to play it?
So the answer is based on your your team size and the man hours you're able to put in. You want to scope your game so like it feels lengthy enough that it's you are once you're done playing that you feel like, okay, that was a satisfying experience. So it can't be, and then this totally depends on the game. However, depending on, like I was saying about the team size or just how many hours you can put into it, there's a limit on how long you can make a game.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of just hitting that happy medium of, well, I feel like this will be about the right length. Or some cases it's like your game only allows for this much variation. For instance, there's 5 stages in Plants vs Zombies. I tried to come up with a different, like, something fundamental that changes up your base gameplay every stage. However, there's a limited amount of those
Yep.
that are still interesting. Some might even argue I only came up with 4 because fog is just, I don't know, that might have been, maybe I shouldn't have put fog in retrospect. But yeah, there's just some finite amount of designs you can come up with and still keep, like, depending on how rich your game rules are, like, there's only so far you can string certain game designs as well. So when you feel like you've stretched it just the right amount, not too thin, I think that is also a place you could say that's where you put the ending. And then, yeah, typically at the ending you put some final test that you'll feel good about beating, like that kind of, you can showcase all the skills you built up until then, and that's how you end a game. And that's how you end a podcast.
I still have a few more questions I do have to ask you before,
Okay, go. Yeah,
because
go
I
for it.
can, like I said, like I am still like buzzed. I love these kinds of conversations. I could sit here for probably like another hour or so easily. But I know you probably have to get going sometime. My family's going to have to. We'll probably start like flicking the lights on and off to let me know everyone's trying to go to sleep soon. But um, a few quick, or I hope quick things to end on. I guess one thing I wanted to ask: what are your thoughts on the Garden Warfare franchise, like that kind of spin-off of Plants vs Zombies? I always thought that was like, it was one of those ideas. Like the first thing I heard about, like, this sounds just messed up, and then like everyone started loving that game.
I've heard a lot. Yeah, there people say that series is really good. I don't really play first person shooters, so I haven't gotten too far into that series. I remember also when first hearing about it, I was just completely astounded, and that was my first thought. My first thought was, what is, and then my second thought was, wait, plants can't move. So that was my second thought, and then I did get to play, just I played a couple hours of it, and yeah, well, for me it was just neat to see. So in Plants vs Zombies, Rich Warner, the artist, and me, we were just like, we were so used to like this. It felt like a much smaller, like much more humble. Like, here's the scale of it. We're doing, 2D sprites with like just a little bit of like skeletal animation, and to see these designs kind of like put somewhere where, like so much work was put into like making these 3D models look so like detailed and just generally awesome. That is the just kind of the biggest impact the game has had on me, just due to not just I have a genre bias, right? Like, I just don't play those kind of games in general. So uh, the yeah, just seeing these characters come to life and right these environments, which also look like they took a lot of time. It's just kind of like seeing, like for instance, if you it's probably the same as if you did like if you were a comic strip artist and someone took your comic strip and made it into like a full like 3D graphics movie. Like it's kind of the same progression, and that's just what's wows me a lot. Yeah, and from what I've seen, they've generally kept in spirit with of kept kept the game in spirit of Plants vs Zombies, just sense of like style and humor. Like there was a wasn't there a zombie that shot dolphins at things? That's a okay by me.
All right. Um, Another question I wanted to ask you really fast. We didn't get too much into Octogeddon. Well, again, if you're up for it, I'll have you back whenever you want. But we'll talk. I do want to talk about Octogeddon from a design point in at some point in our cast. But I guess what I guess are there any plans to do more content with Octogeddon, or have you kind of put a ribbon on that game?
So, as you may have heard, Octogeddon is coming out on Switch in 8 days from now. So that is the what we've announced. Uh, that is all that is coming for Octogeddon in the horizon. And as far as like, is there going to be lots more Octogeddon content beyond this? Um, I how do I not give too much away, but keep it like let's say there are a few avenues I would like to pursue, but I'm also kind of to start something fresh as well. How about that?
All right, so no teasers for the fans watching then right now, at least not yet.
Yep. Yep.
All
If
right.
there's stuff coming down the pipeline, you will we'll let you hear about it in the coming months.
All right. Well, I think again, like if this seems like a good stop point, we could spend another hour just reminiscing about games, but I think this is a good as time as any to wrap things up. Again, George, it has been a definite pleasure having you on. I know we kind of talked more generally about game design, but it was definitely a fascinating conversation to be sure.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And again, congratulations on the success and definitely the impact of Plants vs. Zombies. I posted my review of Octogen, I think, earlier today. I really enjoyed that one as
Ooh.
well. And yeah, I am
Oh,
definitely
great.
interested to see where you come up with next.
Me too.
That's good. That's a good answer, right? But
All
yeah,
right. Well, yeah, thanks for having me. That was really great.
not a problem. If you wouldn't mind hanging on the Discord call for like 30 seconds, I just have a few wrap up questions when we end the stream.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
my final question then for you, or final thing is, do you have anything you'd like to say to the fans to end this cast on?
Well, I would just like to say thanks. I see you in the chat. Thanks for all that type in here. I don't think I have an account set up. So, yeah, hello chat and fans. Just it's just I don't know. Like it's all I could ever have like dreamed of to just make something like I'm talking Plants vs Zombies. Make something of that this has this reach, and it wouldn't have had this like it wouldn't have had it if it wasn't for just there who played and loved the game. And so just I guess just thanks for helping me feel like I've completed my life mission. So thanks for that.
Not a problem. And I hate to do this. I just saw one final question, put you on the spot, George. What is your favorite
Okay,
zombie in Plants vs Zombies?
it's the Gargantuar.
All right.
Yeah, because he can hold a telephone pole
Yeah.
or a duck crossing sign, which is that always cracks me up. And then another zombie.
All right. Again, I could sit here like I'm still jazzed. I'm not going to sleep well tonight. I'm going to be still thinking about design topics for the next few hours. But again, thank you so much for coming on. When you are free again,
Yeah,
we can. I'm more than happy to have you back on
yeah. Hopefully, it gives you lots of inspiration,
for
just
sure.
more stuff to talk about. So yeah, that was great. Thanks so much for having me.
Not a problem. So, for everyone watching us live or recorded right now, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching this recorded and would like an ad-free version, be sure to check out the Patreon link down below. Or if you'd just like to support the channel and what I do, we have our Discord channel open for everyone. If you'd like to talk about game design and random topics, it is linked down there as well. For the live people watching this, there will not be a game stream since it's almost 1 in the morning here. So it's a little too late to start like a 2 to 3 hour gameplay right now. But I'll be back around 9:30 EDT for our next stream. And if you are a designer and like to come on and talk, we're always looking for new guests. So feel free to get in touch with me. But again, George, thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck with whatever your next game may be. And like I said, when you're free, I am more than happy to, again, reminisce about any console or genre for a few hours.
Rock and roll.
There we go. Exactly. All right, everyone. So with that, that is going to be our ending. So have a great night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Until then, take care.